Martin, Barclays has just got rid of its chief executive, Antony Jenkins, who's been in position for 3 years. Now, over that time, he's overseen a 50% increase in the share price. Surely it's madness to get rid of him.
Well, that's one way of looking at it, Oliver, but I think there's a lot of people who would disagree with you. This, in many ways, has been a long time coming. There have been rumblings about Antony Jenkins, and particularly his lack of control over the investment bank, which the performance of which has been very disappointing, even by his own admission. The investment bank was once the powerhouse of Barclays. They bought Lehman Brothers in the US operations in the crisis, added it together with quite a strong European investment banking franchise, mainly a fixed income business, and made this global investment banking powerhouse. But it's gone from being the most profitable business to the least profitable business. And Antony Jenkins has had 2 restructuring attempts, cutting costs, slashing jobs, and it's still not turned around yet. Now, there are promising signs. At the start of the year, the whole industry has been picking up, but Barclays seems to have been lagging in that respect. And I think that, you know, he has to ultimately answer to that. But there are other reasons as well.
He was never brought in as a chief executive for the investment bank. If we think back to when he joined in the middle of 2012, there was all this fury over LIBOR. Bob Diamond had just left. He was brought in to play nice with the regulators and the politicians and get the ethics up to scratch. Has he completed that task, do you think? Is Barclays in a better place than it was in that respect?
Well, John McFarlane, the new chairman at Barclays, who took over from Sir David Walker in May, was asked this today, and he's the guy who Barclays have installed as interim chief executive to replace Antony Jenkins later this month. And he was asked, you know, what about the cultural transformation of Barclays? You know, scandal plagued, and ultimately the scandal of the LIBOR forced out the chairman and chief executive in 2012 and led to Antony Jenkins' appointment. And he said, well, yeah, we're part way through that journey. But he didn't put as much emphasis on the cultural transformation as Antony Jenkins does in every speech that he's made during his time as chief executive. So there was a de-emphasizing of the cultural change and a need for a re-emphasizing of the growth, the need to look for growth, need to improve returns, a need to, you know, get things moving again in a positive direction. You know, almost a feeling like, well, we've enough kind of hectoring of our investment banking traders and deal makers, and time to set them free a bit and get them generating revenue and growing again.
So a commitment to improving returns is all very good, and I'm sure every bank chief executive, indeed every chief executive anywhere, wants to do that. But surely what Barclays needs is something a bit more radical. It's got a universal banking model. It's trying to combine retail and investment banking. It's very hard to make this work. There are very few banks who can make it work. Deutsche Bank's having problems with its own universal banking model. Surely what Barclays needs is not a chairman who says, we're going to do things a little bit better. It needs someone to come in and say, right, we need to think about breaking the whole thing up.
Well, that's certainly not the view of anyone I've spoken to inside Barclays. And in fact, the view is that they need somebody who, as much as strategic differences to Antony Jenkins, they need someone who, stylistically, is different to Antony Jenkins. Somebody who's a bit more charismatic, not quite as charismatic as Bob Diamond, you know, the swashbuckling investment banker that Antony Jenkins replaced, but somewhere between the two.
You couldn't see Jenkins coming in with the deal makers to close a big deal, could you?
No, exactly. But you need someone who can rally the troops, who can motivate people, get people back on the front foot, get the bank moving forward again. It feels like Barclays has been in the cold store for 3 years, you know, introspective, trying to fix its own culture. And John McFarlane has come in as chairman and now as interim chief executive, and he's found a bank that is, you know, almost paralyzed by bureaucracy, that is, you know, losing its best people, and that needs to find a force for moving forward. And so I think that that's very much what they will look for in the replacement to Antony Jenkins.
Interestingly, what you say there, the description of Barclays, is very much the description what might have given to Aviva when John McFarlane became chairman there. That was his job prior to Barclays, and he orchestrated a very successful turnaround there. So I guess Barclays shareholders will be hoping he can do the same sort of thing in his new job. Martin, thanks very much.